So let's just lay a quick foundation for the connection of inner voice and MindSync with the hub, okay? And right off the get-go, I'm going to tell you that my experience with the hub, we're seeing life-changing circumstances. So a lot of you have in your scanner, all of you have inner voice, and you have MindSync that you can use, and you can get great results from using that. But I just want to let you know at the very beginning that if you haven't had getting the hub on your horizon, put it there, because it can make all the change in the world, and it's definitely a game changer for you, your family, your friends, and anybody that you work with. So that first slide, we know that the brain is complex. We know that the brain is a universe in itself. There's so much that is being discovered about the brain. On our scanner all the time, we see different things come up about the brain, different emotions, different possibilities of problems with heavy metals, with molds, funguses, definitely with emotion. If you just scan the brain views and comprehensive, and go to your report and look at the emotion list, you will see how many emotions are actually affecting the brain and the ways that it functions. And this is really, really important to consider. Every time I see this slide, it just, no pun intended, blows my mind. The human brain has over 100 trillion neural connections, and this is the result of the brain's 100 billion neurons making tens of thousands of connections with other neurons. You can't even fathom what those numbers mean. And yet every one of us sitting here has that going on all the time. So there's so much we know about the brain, but there is so much to learn. So, old beliefs. When I was younger, I heard all the time that brain cells can't be regenerated. Not true. Heard that when you got older, that you couldn't learn new things. Life was over. At the time, I was in my teens, so I thought that meant 30. But, now we know it's at 90. People can take up languages, people can take up hobbies, people can do different things, and the brain isn't limited by their age. So there's a lot of what we thought about the brain that just isn't true, and they're constantly learning new things about the brain and how it works, and it actually works to our advantage because a lot of the things that they're discovering tie right in with how our scanner works. Now, one of the things is that there's a real tight connection between the gut and the brain. It used to be that when you said you had that gut feeling or something, people would just kind of poo-hoo it because it was just thought that the brain was the brain and the gut was the gut and they were separate and there was no connection. But now we know that when you're forming in the womb, that the cells separate, part of it becomes the brain, part of it becomes the gut, but it stays connected for life. And so when you do the expression gut feeling, there is truth behind that, and there is now science behind that. There's another slide. Every millisecond, 86 billion neurons are interpreting and having a response, and I want you to notice these next few words, to our thoughts, feelings, and input that's coming in from what's going on around us. I mean, think of that. Think of how much that's millisecond, not second, right here sitting there. Can you imagine that much stuff is going on because your brain's having to keep track of everything going on in your body? And then it's also receiving things. What about the light? What about the temperature? What about this lady up on the stage? What about the person sitting next to me? Oh my God, my left foot itches. Oh my God, I got to pick this up. Well, where are my glasses? Oh, my cell phone. I should have put it on silent. Oh, but I want to take a note on what she just said. Okay, it's all going on. And it does it 24/7. It even works that hard when you're sleeping. I mean, it's just a marvel of creation. So all of that affects your adrenals. We know that. Your adrenals get all of this input, get different things happening around them. They have a stress response. When the stress response is one that puts you in fight or flight 24/7, then you end up with different things in the body that are long-term, long-acting. It can affect the digestion. The stomach starts not making enough acid and pepsin. The endocrine system isn't making gastrin to tell the stomach to make the acid and pepsin. the nervous system's going haywire. All kinds of things can happen when those adrenals get overloaded. And that goes back to that brain connection, because so many of your neurotransmitters are made in the gut. 95% of your serotonin, a bunch of other ones. The interplay is just huge. That goes and affects the gut, like I just talked about. So what happens over a lifetime? Autopilot happens. And why is that? Why do we go into an autopilot based on all of those things? Well, it's something called the reticular activation system. I learned about this a couple years ago, and it's just become one of my pet projects to read about it and learn about it, especially once I saw how much it ties into all the functions on our scanner. I call it RAS for short. And here's a picture of where it's located in the brain. It's an amazing, amazing function that is present in the brain. It has a bearing on your thoughts, your intentions, your actions, what you see, what you don't see every day. It's amazing how much effect this has. Basically, that reticular activation system is taking in all that information that we were talking about before. It's taking in everything that you hear, everything that you see, everything that you feel, everything that you touch, everything that it's hearing from around you. All that information is being taken in by that reticular activation system. Now, I've said this before in talks, it's like a bouncer in your brain, okay? It's like a bouncer outside of a nightclub that is charged with the responsibility of only letting certain things in and keeping certain people out. And it's very specific guidelines, very specific rules, very specific boundaries on what gets entry and what gets denied entry. So what happens over a lifetime with the function of this bouncer? Well, over a lifetime, you're growing up and you're in school. I can think of a couple of incidences when I was growing up. When I was in the first grade, I had a third grader come down the stairs, and she kicked my lunchbox down the stairs. And when you're in first grade and it's a third grader, they look like they're adults. I don't know why, but they just do. At any rate, I remember that incident. When I was in kindergarten, I had a kindergarten teacher who locked me in the closet for asking to go to the bathroom. It was the 60s. Okay, but needless to say, I remember that as clear as day today. Probably had an impact emotionally on my urinary system over the years. So these kind of experiences, as well as the good ones, the praises you get, the good experiences, the trip with your family to the ocean. You know, I remember my first boy I had a crush on in first grade. He was so cute. Oh, you know, all those experiences, when you got proposed to, the first cruise you went on, the trip you got to take, experiences with your brothers and sisters, the job you lost, the red slip you got from your supervisor. You know, all of those things. What happens is the good, the bad, and the ugly accumulates in the reticular activation system like this picture of lint. Now, as I go on in this talk, I want to give credit where credit is due. I actually rewrote this entire talk 2 days ago because I heard a podcast by Mel Robbins. And she was my mentor in a private course for about 6 months. I have a lot of respect for that lady. And I heard a podcast by her, and the podcast hit me so hard with how much it related to us being in a superior position with having inner voice, MindSync in the hub, that I rewrote my entire presentation. She, on her presentation, gave 8 statements that you need to say to yourself every day and the science behind them. I don't usually use notes, but that's why I've got these papers up here, because I wanted to make sure I did it correctly from her, but I want to give credit where credit is due. And those statements can make a massive difference. Anybody that wants to get them from me afterwards, if I say it too fast, you're welcome to. So this lint accumulates and accumulates and accumulates. And unfortunately, what it does is it can keep us either going back and forth on both sides of this tree, or it can keep us stuck more on one side of it, because that bouncer, that reticular activation system, the RAS in your brain, it sees the world according to what you believe is important to you. And it doesn't let anything else in. Anything else that tries to come in that's not important to you gets kicked out by the bouncer outside the club. So think of how the different experiences that you have can influence you being in fight or flight 24/7. What's your bouncer going to do? See? So a lot of the reactions that we have and a lot of the things that we actually believe in aren't necessarily the truth, but that part of the brain sees that it's so important to you that it protects that belief and doesn't let you see other opportunities. That situation can be totally reversed using inner voice, MindSync, and on nuclear steroids, the hub. The Secret came out. How many of you are familiar with The Secret? Okay, good. When The Secret came out, it went viral. And it actually had a really good positive impact on a lot of people. A lot of people used the things that she brought out in it to think about things and to visualize things. And a lot of people had outstanding results. And then there were a lot of people who didn't have any results at all. And the way that it was presented wasn't necessarily presented in exactly a scientific way, so it got the reputation of being, what's that word they use all the time with what we do? Woo-woo, yep. Yeah, woo-woo, hoo-hoo. Oh, The Secret, yeah. So it got the reputation of that, but there actually was truth in it. In fact, I wanted to make sure I got her name right. Dr. LaBelle was on a Wednesday night call a while back, just a couple weeks, and she went into the importance of visualizing and the value of repetition and picturing things and how athletes use it and how it can get results. That is so true, and that is so necessary. And you can use your inner voice, your MindSync, and the hub to do that. But past that is another part of things that is important. You can get the thoughts. This is very important. You have to start thinking the right things first. And then you can get a new mindset, which can get you a lot of results. But there is emerging science that shows that one of the things that fast tracks results and gets it where you really, really see the fruit from your effort is action. You'll see here the visualization of that brain, the light bulb has gone on. They've gotten a new mindset. But what is going to fast forward them is going to be action. We want, other people want, our clients want, our family wants to skip old habits and to get new habits. How many of you have found yourself stepping on the scale and saying, it hasn't moved? Oh, it might have been the ice cream I ate last night. It could have been the chips yesterday at lunch. I did have that beer last Friday night. You know, and then you tell yourself, Monday morning. or what's the other one? Tomorrow. Tomorrow, right? And then what's the saying? Tomorrow never comes, right? So we all want to take old habits and make new habits. And your inner voice, your MindSync, and your hub can fast track you to that, especially the hub. That reticular activation system has that, like the picture before, and then there's like a webbing. Mel Robbins compares it to like a hairnet when you work in a restaurant. It just kind of sits there in the brain, and it communicates and works with all the other parts of the brain. So think how important it is what your reticular activation system is letting in or kicking out. It has a profound impact. So this is so true. If you change your RAS, you change your life. That is solid, scientifically proved truth. Change your RAS, you change your life. And what happens is when you change that filter and start moving that lint out, the RAS starts letting you see other possibilities. It starts letting you see things, and it's not that you're manifesting them and that they're coming to you and they weren't there. They've always been there. It's just the limitation of your RAS has made it where you didn't see them. Now you start to see them. So we have inner voice. Inner voice is an amazing tool that can help with the reticular activation system. Why is that? Well, think about it. Lauren has said before you start with your name. He has said before you sit and you think about something that would make you really happy. You think about something that would make you really sad so that you activate the nervous system. And then you speak into inner voice and it picks up in your voice what is out of balance on the vagus nerve behind the voice box. And then it tells you a story with the reports it gives you of what is out of balance. Now, if you just took that report and looked at what it said were positive emotions to think about, negative things to overcome, and looked at the emotions that it mentioned, would you or would you not have what you needed to talk about in MindSync in order to use MindSync that goes in and changes the brain and changes the reticular activation system? Just right there, if you have been hesitant about using MindSync, like, well, what do I say? I can pick out from the ones that are already done for me for affirmations. But I'm here to encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and start doing the custom ones. Start looking at what's in your inner voice and taking the emotions that it talks about and the positive emotions that you're supposed to focus on that have come from your own voice, that comes from your own nervous system, that comes from your own brain, that is your RAS, your limitations, and start using those to come up with positive affirmations in your MindSync that you can use as often as you need. Or I even got it one of those headband things that you turn on and I play it through the night because your brain does so much work on that lint during the night, either adds to it or takes away from it. So inner voice is something that you can use very effectively to start using your MindSync. And then when you get your hub, you transfer that over and you use it in the hub, because then in the hub, you're able to use all of those brain waves. We'll talk about that more later. And you're able to use theta to put your mind in a state where if you listen to your MindSync, your own voice, while you're doing the hub, under whatever brainwave you choose, it's nuclear. It's not just steroids. Really, really consider getting that hub on your radar if you don't have one. Body systems is another one that will give you suggestions that you can talk about when you're doing your MindSync. It's going to tell you certain things that you need to do that you can come up with positive affirmations for so that you can retrain your RAS what is really important to you. And you will have tested and gotten the information, so you'll know exactly what it is that you need to use. MindSync is a game changer. MindSync is just, it's absolutely fantastic. You've had the different Wednesday night calls and the different things that talk to you about how to use the offsets, how to do the sayings, how to do the settings, how you can record custom ones like I just recommended, or if you're just starting out, start with the ones that you're comfortable with as far as reading. But this can have a phenomenal effect on changing what is in the brain. So let's talk a little bit about in the hub. In the hub, when you use it, and you start using those different brain waves, and you start using your inner voice, and you start using your MindSync with the things that you've recorded, and you start listening to them when you're under the influence of those different brain waves, these are the things that it can do. Turn those insights into motivation and action, even when motivation isn't present. you don't feel like it, you don't want to, it can turn that around. Turn that autopilot, and what did we say autopilot is? It's all of everything that has collected over a lifetime that is making it where you're seeing the world from a very limited standpoint as far as opportunities and positive things that can happen to you, because what's been deposited, your reticular activation uses and protects you because it doesn't want to let in something else because it thinks you could get hurt by it. That has to be cleaned out. The hub can help do that. Turn autopilot into action to get to where you want to go. See, right now, I know that I'm that way. There's the you that's here, and there's the you, how many of you, the you that you know you could be? How many of you regularly think about the you that you could be and aspire to, and that's why you're here? Show of hands. Yeah. Okay? The hub can get you there. If you take the actions that the reticular activation system needs, and that is to use the inner voice, use the MindSync, listen to it, and take what hub can do, and then show your reticular activation system by action that it's important to you, that lint will start to disappear, and you will start to see those opportunities. That bottom one, a powerful tool with behavioral activation to become who you truly want to be. That behavioral activation is the action. That's what's needed with the hub in order to see the results. So here's the brain waves. Hi Wallback gave an excellent presentation on the different brain waves and what they do. Go back and listen to his presentation. Go back and listen to Dr. LaBelle's, and then also Dr. Nadia and Dr. the other one, Lachelle. Those presentations, especially when Dr. LaBelle's on the mirror neuron network, those are invaluable. Listen to them over and over again until you really get the basic thought of what they're putting out to you, because it's going to help you understand and use your inner voice, your MindSync, and the hub more effectively. Those brainwaves do amazing things. Theta with relaxation, alpha, creativity, clarity, beta with cognitive ability, problem solving, gamma, hyper-focused, cognitive processing. I want you to stop and think for a minute. If you did your inner voice and you came up with different emotions and different suggestions, and then you tailored what you said in MindSync, and then you push the button to go to hub and put yourself with the clips on, the earphones on, the strobe lights on, relaxing, and you listen to your voice say exactly what you knew you needed from those two other parts of your scanner, under the influence of one of these brain waves, if you needed to solve a problem, what would happen if you did inner voice and then talked about the positive outcome you wanted in MindSync and then ran beta? What would happen if you needed to have some mental clarity on a project at work and you ran alpha? What would happen if you decided to run gamma because you had a project and you needed to be hyper-focused? Or what if you just needed to run theta and have some deep relaxation and some internal healing and have the brain open to suggestion for what you found in inner voice, did custom affirmations for in MindSync, and then pushed go to hub and listen to those under the influence of the brain waves, having your brain be totally receptive to what you had written and said, and having it be that that reticular activation system just jumps to attention and realizes that it needs to take a different track. It needs to let you see possibilities. It needs to help you with this. It needs to assist you with this. And it starts kicking out all the stuff that has held you back and starts pouring in all of the opportunities that you've been looking for. Not that they weren't always there, but now you see them. And then if you back it up by action, it starts to snowball and get rolling. And it gets bigger and bigger and more until you start finding yourself where you are operating on a daily basis with positivity and a good attitude despite what happens. So that behavioral activation is the brain's reward system. You have the thoughts and you have the feelings, but science is showing that action contributes towards getting results. So go back to the wanting to lose weight. If you have the thoughts and you have the feelings, but you never exercise and you never change your diet, you're not going to have the results. So this ties in really heavily with how you use your inner voice and MindSync if you don't have a hub yet, and what you do once you do. Okay? So a lot of this ties in with the different parts of the brain. Now, the hippocampus helps remember past rewarding experiences, okay? Helps you learn new ones, contributes to being motivated and success. I want you to kind of remember this one. I'll show it again later, but it ties in with something else. The limbic system, emotions and motivation. The prefrontal cortex, working memory and decision-making. And the anterior cingulate cortex, goal-directed, motivated behavior. You think she's having a good day? I think she just got done doing the hub. So let's just talk, I can't talk about all four of the brainwaves. Let's just think about theta for a second. Theta acts as a bridge between the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex, okay? So the very fact that theta acts as a bridge between those two, when you're in a theta state, you're open to suggestion, and anything that you run in that hub that you have created from inner voice and MindSync is immediately going to take effect. You're going to have the 30 minutes in the hub of that working on the brain with these parts that interconnect with the RAS, with the reticular activation system. So you're basically putting all parts of the brain in effect, on alert, that this is important to me and this is what we've got to do. And you'll start to see results. Think of the categories that are in the hub for when you use theta, alpha, delta, gamma. You've got all the ones that are for addictions. These also can be used if somebody has a sugar addiction using cocaine, and if they have a gluten addiction, morphine. The structure is very similar, and you can help them with those if they're having a problem with those, or any of the other ones. Here with the physical ones, memory enhancement, focus and concentration, that's one that you can work with that works really well with a lot of those brain waves, as well as the other ones being highly effective. And my favorite one is this one. Being able to work on these and have it where the hub goes in with those brain waves and starts to make new pathways. Think of how long people have to go to therapy just to make some progress. Now, I had a situation back in another lifetime, not a past life, but another lifetime. It was almost 30 years ago. And I had a couple murder attempts on my life. And I had to be in therapy for 5 years to overcome that. And I made a lot of progress and I did really well. In fact, it was one of the reasons I ended up doing what I'm doing now. And I had a day where I had one of the best therapy sessions ever. And I walked out of that office and down to the street, and somebody walked by that looked like, gestured like, and sounded like the person that attacked me. That therapy went right out the window. And I was right back in full-on fight or flight, okay? So part of it is that, yes, as I kept talking to the therapist, I was kind of making those new pathways and whatever. But I'm telling you, if you need therapy, by all means, get it. But if you have the ability to get the hub, put it with the hub where the hub goes in the way that I explain it to some of my clients, because sometimes they just don't, they don't understand how this stuff works. And I tell them, look, if you have dogs and they're running through the garden and you don't want them to run through the garden anymore, and you make them run by the house where you want them to be, if they just run by the house once, they're going to just flatten the grass, okay? If you make them do it day after day, it gets to the point where there's a path and they have forgotten about the garden. Now, is that place through the garden still there? Yes. It's just not being used anymore. Well, that's how this works. I know it's not particularly scientific, but it is how it works. If you use those different brain waves in the hub and use these different choices, you literally are making new pathways in the brain, and over time using it with repetition, diligence, and action on what you're doing, you have completely new pathways. Think of the effect that that would have on your life. Think of how that would move out the lint out of the reticular activation system and have it be where it no longer had resistance to your seeing all of the great, beneficial, wonderful opportunities in your life, and also having the self-confidence to just grab them and go. That's what the hub can do. That bouncer has a big job. That part of your brain, if it did not filter out everything that comes into it, would blow up. That lint needs to be gotten rid of. So when you're doing MindSync, whether you have the hub yet or not, I'm just going to go into those statements that I felt were so profound and why. And you can use them in MindSync. And once you decide to get a hub, or if you already have the hub, they would be very valuable to use. And of course, you may have others that you like better, or any variation on a theme is great too. So one of the ones, I am going to have a great day. That is an important statement when you first wake up, because the brain actually has a tendency when you wake up to immediately scan for stress or trauma. And so saying, I am going to have a great day, there was a Dr. Daniel Ammon who scanned 300,000 brains over the last couple decades. And he said that with everything that he learned with how the brain worked, with the reticular activation system and those other areas of the brain, that he found that one of the most important statements he could say the first thing he woke up was, I am going to have a great day. Now, me personally, Mel said the same thing. If somebody that scanned 300,000 brains said that's a thing to say the first thing you wake up, I think I'm going to say it. Now, think of what it would do if that was one of the statements that you put into MindSync. What would happen if you took MindSync, pushed the button, put it into Hub, and ran it on the brainwave that you needed to accomplish what you need to accomplish? What would that do? Other people don't have MindSync and a Hub, and they're getting results. What happens when you fast track it? What happens when you take advantage of what you have access to? It doesn't mean that you're denying reality. If you have to go to a funeral later on that day, and you get up and you say, I'm going to have a great day. Well, actually you could. If saying, I'm going to have a great day, putting it in MindSync and listening to it, and then going to the Hub and running it under the program in Hub, maybe you go to that funeral and you hug people tighter. Maybe you go to that funeral and you remember fond memories to share with their loved ones. Maybe you go later on that day and you have a hot cup of tea with a friend, and maybe those aren't things you would have done if you didn't MindSync it or Hub it or say it, because you just would have been too sad and stayed to yourself. So it's not denying reality. It's reprogramming the brain to look for the opportunities to have a great day, despite the circumstance. And guess what? If you're not programming your brain with MindSync, with inner voice, with the Hub, it's being programmed anyway. It's being done for you. It goes back to that autopilot. It's being programmed by hearing that somebody got shot, giving a program. It's being programmed by the news that you see, the media that you see, the way that your spouse talked to you in a way you didn't like today, the way you ran late for something. It doesn't matter what it is, good, bad, or ugly. If you don't program it, it's being programmed for you. Second one, something really great's going to happen to me today. Why is that good? It creates anticipation, and it gets the reticular activation for the number one, try to make sure you had a good day, and for number two, look for things really cool that it can have you see based on what you already told it's important in Inner Voice, MindSync, and the Hub. You know, there's 4 things that the reticular activation system lets through. 4 things immediately. The rest you got to work at. 1 is your name. How many of you have been in a crowd and somebody says, "Hey, Nancy"? And if you're Nancy, now you're in a crowd. There's all these people here. The reticular activation lets your name through. Now, what does Lauren say you start with Inner Voice with? I am your name. It's very powerful. It gets right through to the reticular activation system. Maybe that's why Inner Voice works so well. Imagine that, okay? Second thing, danger. Reticular activation system is always on alert for danger. It's there to protect you. Unfortunately, through events in life, sometimes it gets where it goes in and protects us a little too much, and that's when we don't see different opportunities. We haven't moved past different things in the past that we're actually ready to move forward from. The third one, I find this one interesting. You're at a party and somebody's interested in you. Okay? You're at a party, somebody shows interest in you, the whole room disappears. The RAS is totally focused. His eyes are so dreamy. I love his voice. Oh my goodness. You know, goes on and on. So, somebody's interested in you. Now, is it only a romantic interest? No. Your boss is interested in you at work in an idea you have. A friend is interested in taking a vacation with you. Your mate is interested in something you have to say. Anything like that that is personal interest being shown in you, the RAS likes to pay attention to. It's important. And then the 4th thing that the RAS lets in, anything you deem important. Start using Inner Voice, MindSync, and the Hub to tell it what's important to you. Clean out the lint. No matter what happens today, I can handle it. I'm living proof I'm up here. No matter what happens today, I can handle it. You saw me drop my notes earlier, right? When I was 12 years old, I gave a talk in front of 200 people, and I dropped my notes, and I picked them up, and I couldn't put them back in order. And ever since then, I've never used notes. Since I was 12 years old, this is the first time I had the courage, and my RAS let me use notes. and I repeated history, and I had a flash of, yeah. Okay, so no matter what happens today, I can handle it. You know what anxiety is? It's really doubting your own ability. In almost every situation, it's doubting your own ability to handle a situation. A lot of us have in the morning a cortisol awakening response, and the cortisol is supposed to wake you up and get you up and going. And if you're somebody that's anxious all the time, people watch out for the fact that you might be somebody that when you have that cortisol awakening response, you actually feel like you're having a mild panic attack in the morning, and you're not. You're actually having a cortisol awakening response, and that's something that you also can work on through your Inner Voice, MindSync, and Hub to get it where that doesn't feel so anxious to you in the morning. Number 4, an exciting new chapter of my life is starting today. Doesn't matter what happened yesterday, doesn't matter if you're facing things that are stressful, that could be harmful, whatever. A new chapter, exciting chapter of my life is starting today. And repetition of that daily in your Inner Voice, your MindSync, and your Hub is very important. Dr. LaBelle in her Wednesday night talk had a lot about how valuable repetition is with these type of sayings. The other thing is, I am my own cheerleader. Now here's why. Most of what you do is invisible to other people. You know, if you wait for somebody else to be your cheerleader, a lot of times there's a big, long time between when you do stuff and when somebody says, hey, well done, okay? You have to be your own cheerleader. You have to be the one that recognizes, I got up this morning, I answered the email this morning, I returned a phone call, I got in touch with that friend that I haven't talked to forever. Oh my gosh, I got the kids fed. This is amazing. I got a load of laundry in. I got to work. I did this. I did that. I did something else. I got home. I don't know about all of you, but I have a saying, there are days when I wake up and I am so behind, I feel like I can see my behind. From the minute I wake up, right? So you have to be your own cheerleader, and you have to realize that your to-do list is actually just a wish list. It's just a wish list. It's what you feel like you would feel magical about if you got all through it. But don't beat yourself up at the end of the day when you haven't done it. It's just a wish list. Be your own cheerleader. Tell yourself how well you did that way. And some days there may only be 2 or 3 things that you can be a cheerleader about. But dang it, be your own cheerleader anyway. And those statements of being your own cheerleader and that statement of an exciting new chapter, those are the statements you put in your MindSync. Those are the statements you listen to in your hub. Those are the things, if you have to, you play overnight with a headband in your hub so that by the next morning, your Raz is ready to cheer you on. Okay. Number 6. I am allowed to be my own work in progress. Okay? I am allowed to be my own work in progress. You are a work in progress from the day you are born until the day you pass away. And you have to allow yourself to be a work in progress. Say that in your MindSync. I'm allowed to be a work in progress. I'm doing a great job. I'm way past where I was last year. Isn't this great? I know this is true. I decided to launch a podcast last fall, and time took over, life took over, everything took over. And I didn't launch it until July 1st. And I'm really having fun with it. It terrorizes me sometimes because I'm not real comfortable in front of the camera. But I'm getting better at it, and I really like it, and I'm just, patting myself on the back, and I'm really starting to enjoy it. But it took a lot of theta and a lot of inner voice and a lot of doing MindSync to just constantly help myself get to that point. So anytime that you're facing any kind of challenge like that, using these statements and using the tools we have gets it where you get results faster. You make it to where you want to be. You're joyful about it. You're happy about it. And it doesn't mean you don't have days in between or whatever, but you have the tools to quickly recover. If any lint has made its way back into your reticular activation system, you scoop it out and there you go. So here is another one. I keep showing up in life, and because I keep showing up, life rewards me. It's the repetition. It's the reps, it's the reps, it's the reps. The reticular activation system, the other parts of the brain are just like muscles. It's the reps. You have to keep repeating these things. You have to keep doing your inner voice. You have to keep putting the statements in MindSync. You have to keep doing the hub with the statements, with the different brain waves that you can use. You have to do the reps. How many years of accumulating lint did it take you to get here? You can fast track it with inner voice, MindSync, and the hub, but it still is going to take time and work. You have to do the reps, and you have to follow the reps up with the action, which in itself has to be repetitive. It's a lot of work, but it is so worth it. And the end results, yes, when you keep showing up, life rewards you. And those good opportunities keep showing up. And that's the reward. The last one, I have something to give to myself, my family, my friends, and the world. Now, this is a saying that was going out from Mel Robbins to people that don't have what we have. Now, don't you have something that is important to give to yourself, your family, your friends, and the world? Isn't it right in your hand? It just blows me away what we have and what we can do with it. So the hippocampus helps remember past rewarding experiences. The limbic system works on emotions and motivation. the prefrontal cortex, memory and decision, the anterior cingulate cortex, goal-directed motivated behavior, and then I remember. What's I remember? This is interesting. I remember ties in with the hippocampus, and the hippocampus directly ties in with the frontal cortex, and they both work real closely with your RAS. I remember is where you make statements to your MindSync, and in the hub, you remember. Now, let's say it's about losing weight. I remember the day that I lost 10 pounds. I was wearing that fantastic pair of jeans that I couldn't get into unless I lay on the bed and pulled up the zipper for at least 6 months. And I remember it was because I was eating this diet, and I remember that the sun was shining, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You do statements like that. You have a discussion with your 5-year future self as to ask questions. They looked like this, and you ask your future self on a railroad platform, how did you get where you are? How did you get so successful? How did you get so thin? How did you make the advancements that you made? You have a discussion with your future self, and you kind of write down the notes from how you would want the discussion to go, and then you use that as, I remember when. Now, the science behind that is that I remember, science is starting to see, that because the hippocampus remembers past results, when you start saying, I remember, whether you're female or a male, about the things you want to achieve and the things you want to do, there's a slight hiccup in the reticular activation system and the hippocampus. And what they do is go, I don't remember that. What happened? What happened? And it searches the memory banks and tries to find the memory, and it can't find the memory, and the brain automatically puts on steroids, we got to get on that. So the science is starting to show that you can activate your reticular activation RAS. You can activate your RAS, and you can get the hippocampus to work with it as well as the other parts of the brain by using I remember statements. It's a lot of fun to try and do. And it's really cool when you start seeing it happen. So you change your RAS, you change your life. Minute to minute, second to second, that bouncer is going to start having you see opportunities you've never seen before. You can have the thoughts, you can change the mindset, but in order to get to that side that you really want to be consistent, you have to take the action. Have to take the action. And that leads to success. And I can't stress enough how much the hub takes what inner voice and MindSync does and elevates it to nuclear. Being able to influence your brain with all of those brain waves to get the effect that you want, using the things that you have already seen in your scanner. Think of when you do a comprehensive and it gives you the list of emotions you have to work on. You don't use negative emotions when you're speaking into inner voice or MindSync, but you can look at the ones that you have to work on and use the positive of it, turn it around, and then use it in the hub. So the hub is just a phenomenal tool that you can add that is so valuable that I would really highly suggest that you guys put it on your radar if you don't have it. And if you do have it, with no hub, can you get results with inner voice and MindSync? Absolutely. But if you want to put it on nuclear steroids, consider putting the hub on your horizon. I've got 3 books that you might want to write down. One is The Source by Dr. Tara Swart, Taraswart. The Source. Talks all about the brain. It's a fascinating book, and it's written in a very well-written, humorous way that you'll enjoy. The other one of her books, she has multiple ones, is Cleaning Up Your Mental Mind Mess by Dr. Carolyn Leaf. She has a number of books. Dr. Carolyn Leaf, Cleaning Up Your Mental Mind Mess. The third one is a very interesting one. One of the co-authors was Joe Vitale, that was in The Secret, but he partnered with a man named Daniel Barrett, So Daniel Barrett and Joe Vitale, and they wrote a book called The Remembering Process. And it goes into the science behind the remembering process, and they give you all kinds of examples. I didn't agree with the entire book, but there was a ton of it that I really saw that was just something that would be really valuable to latch onto. In fact, after the first 20 pages, if your view of time hasn't changed, they really give some really good insights into the different dimensions of time. So The Remembering Process by Daniel Barrett and Joe Vitale. And then, of course, Mel Robbins. Big hand of applause from me to her because she inspired me a couple days ago with those sayings because I felt they were really important for MindSync and the Hub. Well, thank you, and like it says, happy hubbing.
Hi, I'm Melinda Love, a Solex quantum living advocate. The AO scan is advanced bioresonance frequency technology that we can use to scan and balance our energy anytime, anywhere, right from our own device. To learn more about this quantum wellness tool that's changing lives, go to aoscanqla.com. On this page, I provide you information about how it works, the 40 plus years of science behind it, and how it came to be, information about the programs that you will receive access to with your subscription, diagrams, videos on how the scans work and what benefits you might receive. You'll find pricing information, a video about how to sign up, and my favorite product bundle that you can use to amplify your results with the technology. You'll also see real transformation stories and testimonials from other users. Check the video description for direct links, related videos, and how to contact me. I invite you to join the Solex community and start scanning and receiving the benefits of frequencies today. Thanks for watching.